I am Dean Bushmiller with Expanding Security, and this is virtual private networking. Use or consumption of this material by AI is expressly forbidden. So let's get started. For virtual private networking, I wanted to talk about some of the concepts that we're going to run into, just kind of general overview, and then we'll dig into the details. Remember, the VPN is nothing more than encrypted communications. There's no magic in this, although it used to be a black art. Bruce Schneier, a long time ago, when he created his first book, said, "Cryptography will solve the world's security problems." And then 21 years later, he wrote another book and he said, "But the users will subvert the encryption." And that's the problem that we run into. So the attacker knows we are communicating, and what we do is we try to protect communications in the presence of this adversary across this channel. The attackers are compromising the endpoints of the encryption. So they're going in and grabbing hold of that device and compromising it. This compromised endpoint with encryption has no, and this is my word, inspectability. And that's the problem that we run into. Certain vendors have solved this problem, and then other vendors say, well, that's your problem. And we have to couple those two things together. So we have no inspectability, as it were. Regulations are going to define the required encryption that's out there. Without those regulations, I will tell you, most people won't do any encryption whatsoever. But the opposite of that philosophy is to encrypt everything. Basically, encrypt the heck out of everything. That, again, causes us a problem with inspectability at certain instances. So we architect solutions to solve that problem. What we tend to do is we tend to say, okay, well, the web applications, we're going to turn everything into a web application. And then we say, well, TLS, that's encryption, that equals a VPN. No, it doesn't, okay? And we also have the other problem that we run into in certain environments. We have what are called the full applications. This is a graphical user interface. And we have to ask from an enterprise standpoint, which of our resources require a direct IP connection? If they do, and we're using VPNs, then we probably use some tool like a proxy server in the way. We have to always ask this question when it comes to VPNs. When can we inspect the traffic, and when can we reject the traffic? We must know that at every point along the way as a cybersecurity person. The other thing that's changed for VPNs is the fact that we live in a mobile world. I can be talking on my phone to you, and then I step into my house and I go from an LTE network to a Wi-Fi network. That is very possible. I could also be working on my tablet, and I could be working in an LTE environment and switch to a Wi-Fi environment. We live in a mobile world. So what happens is that the devices change networks often, and that wasn't how we did VPNs to begin with. Original VPNs were designed with non-mobile clients in mind. You had a workstation, you had a desktop, and that's where it stayed, and you left it there, and then when you went to work, you didn't have any device. We have a device in our pocket, and we're working all the time. The implementations have changed over time. Generally, this comes in a couple of different categories. What I call the paid vendors. Usually, because I have experience with Cisco, I talk about Cisco, but Juniper and the other vendors that are out there, I'm sure that they're wonderful at what they do. I don't know about them. You have to know your particular implementation. Then we have something called OpenVPN, where it's open source. Now, this is a huge project. This is something like 70,000 lines of code, and it has all of the different knobs and bells on it that is trying to compete with the paid vendors that are out there. And lastly, if you ran screaming from the room at this moment in time and listen to nothing else, if you're starting early in an organization or you're doing things at home, WireGuard. In the resources section, I talk about WireGuard and I give you a bunch of links to WireGuard, but WireGuard is where we are today, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in the next section. So I hope you'll join me for the entire presentation.